Hello there and welcome to another edition of IABM TV, and today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by John Ward, who is the Executive Vice President of the Americas responsible for sales and strategy at Friend MTS. John, fantastic for you to join me, albeit virtually today instead of person. First of all, how are you doing?
Oh, thank you, Callum. Great to be with you, and thank you for the opportunity. Doing well. I'm doing well. We're, kind of bracing again, as you've alluded to, with we were talking earlier, the second wave of the pandemic, and we're working safely as we possibly can. I'm actually in our Philadelphia offices today for Friend MTS, and I'm the only one here, seemingly in the building almost, but nevertheless, I'm here and feel safe enough because there's not many people around me, but we're hanging in there. It's been an interesting year for the company and an interesting year for the world and life at work in general. So all in all, I think we're in good shape.
Fantastic. It's great to hear that. Always, I suppose if I'd have said to you 2 years ago, you'll be in the office on your own on this day, you'd probably call me crazy, but this is the world that we're living in at the moment. So great that you're able to get into the office and I suppose have some normality, which we're all trying to get back to as safely as we can do. So it's great for you to join us anyway. I guess let's start off with Friend MTS, and you've been in the business now of content protection, easy for me to say, technology for 2 decades now. Plenty of insight, I guess, learned along the way. What would be your best advice for the industry on this issue in particular?
I think, Callum, when you look at this, my background that I kind of bring to the table, I started off in production, live sports production, original entertainment production, eventually moving my way around through Fox Sports and DirecTV to the distribution of content. And knowing exactly what it entails to actually produce this content. The money is involved to acquire the rights to broadcast the content, the creative energies and the talent that are behind the scenes, actually creating a compelling product, something that you actually make and want to sell to the public. And now kind of rounding it out with the protection of that content. It's interesting to me that I think everyone agrees piracy is an issue. But the steps to kind of move forward and to take that step of actually protecting the content, it should be part and parcel to your actual creation and distribution strategy. Protecting that content and protecting that valuable IP needs to be present at the very beginning. And we are partners in this space. We've been in it, as you alluded to, for over 2 decades. We detect, deter, and disable piracy. We're passionate about it. We evolve our workflows and our product sets as pirates evolve. And look, at the end of the day, the best advice is you have to get started. You have to care about what you're doing. When you insure a house, you don't insure just one room, you insure the whole home. And it should really be a part of the entire concept of creating, distributing content, is the protection piece of it. It just seems silly to not have that in place.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, something that you mentioned there, which I guess I never really thought about. I guess you take for granted a little bit. Clearly, piracy has been an issue now for quite a long, years and years, really, as long as I can remember. Do you think maybe a bit of naivety or taking things for granted around the time of years gone by has led to the challenges that have been created with piracy?
I think it's people tend to do the same thing they've always done. It doesn't really matter if we're talking about the media business. It could be someone's life in general. It's hard to create change. It's hard to get people to change a routine or a habit and look at things a little differently and trying to make things happen. I mean, look, as we sit here and obviously, we're taping this and this is going to be broadcast later. As we sit here, this weekend is one of the biggest releases Marvel has coming up, the latest Spider-Man movie. That's already leaked this week. The Witcher is another series that's on Netflix, which people have been waiting up to 2 years for. It has already been pirated and released. And I think it's to continue to do the same thing and expect a different result, Callum, is insanity. You have to change in action, right? You have to start. If you don't start, then in my mind, it's sort of pointless to expect anything different anything different than piracy. People in the history of goods and services being provided in exchange for payment, if there's a way to steal something or get it for free, people have done this. People will always do this. And it just, people have to take that initial step and view it as a serious threat. And honestly, it needs to be a sea change, I think, within content providers in the industry. I think to a certain degree, my conversations thus far, as I've been at Friend, people care about it, but it's, it's tough. We're a cost center, right? It's a cost against an overall project or part of a production routine. But at the end of the day, it's an important part of the process. And it's something that has to be considered, and people have to just get started with it. And I think, with us, especially if you start a program with us, from fingerprinting to watermarking, you'll see the results, you'll see the efficacy, you'll see that we indeed are one step ahead of these pirates in trying to make sure that your content is protected and valued, because it affects everybody. Piracy affects everyone, from the people who actually work on the production, all the way down to the people, distributing the content, subscription churn. All of this is all a part of the play. So it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, it's I guess from my fairly uneducated view on it, something that is close to my heart. Football and sports in particular, it's something that has been huge in the last few years, and I know a lot has gone into trying to reduce it and stop where I can. But I guess the problem in sports, in films, as you've said there, I mean, I've actually bought tickets to go and see the Spider-Man film this weekend, and
as I do as well.
It seems crazy to me that people would rather, I know piracy is a lot more advanced now than it used to be. Doesn't look like it's been filmed on a handheld camera anymore, but that whole cinema experience is surely part of the deal for me. But anyway, that's my rambling. But I suppose the point being is that pirates have, particularly over the last, I guess, couple of years, 5 years, are so much more sophisticated than some of the things that I mentioned there very briefly. With that in mind, how does the industry stay ahead? How can they continue to fight this and stay one step ahead of some of these pirates?
Sure. Well, here's the great news. Companies like Friend MTS do just that and stay one step ahead of the pirates. We have an entire sort of, I call them the pirate CSI team, for lack of a better description, although I think internally we refer to them as the video CSI team, security team. I'm blown away, and I'm in this job now maybe 6 months, and I see the daily notes and looks that these guys do on a daily basis. These techniques, the pirates, it's not as simple as people shooting video with a phone and just rebroadcasting it. These pirate networks are elaborate in nature, are actually, believe it or not, they're complete networks that are set up with EPGs that look like you would buy. And that's another part of this too, Callum, is trying to convince people, especially here in the States. You hear people speak about, but I don't pirate content, I pay for it. But they're actually paying a pirate website for content that has been completely rebroadcast, been returned around to the consumer. Some of these pirate networks are so sophisticated, they have their own customer care center set up, complete with using the digital triggers that are in some of these streams to rebroadcast and do additional dynamic ad insert into these broadcasts. It's absolutely amazing to me. I mean, I guess, look, if you it's a joke, but it's a sad joke. If you didn't have the cost of acquiring content, I guess you could build one unbelievable interface to broadcast the content. It's absolutely amazing to me how elaborate some of these are. But the good news is we've got the sharpest minds in the business working this constantly, and they see and report on new things every day. And, frankly, that influences our product set and our mindset as we approach the customer to determine what's the best solution for their particular situation.
Yeah, you probably saw a look of disbelief on my face then when you were talking. I suppose years ago, no one was in any doubt if they were consuming pirated content because of the quality, because of probably the means of actually receiving it. Whereas now, if people are physically paying for a service and not even realizing that it's a pirated service, that just blows my mind a little bit. So I suppose that in itself shows the challenge that broadcasters and networkers have stay ahead, because if there's ignorance within the customer base, that's a big challenge, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it's fascinating, really, really interesting, and clearly, as I say, a massive challenge for everyone involved, I guess. I suppose the next question I have: what do you see as an important use case then for partnering with a content protection specialist that goes beyond just protecting the content and the revenue?
Sure. Look, at the end of the day, the key to what we do is identify that there is a leak, there is a pirating problem. With our watermarking technology, we're able to drill down to its subscriber, who is the actual bad actor, as well as or a distributor who could be leaking content across multiple platforms as a licensee of a content provider. Here's where it gets really, where we, I think, shine the best in many respects. Having insurance on, I'll give you, for instance, a home, and your home has fire damage or horribly would burn down, you would file a claim for that issue, right? You would want to try to recoup, you would want to try to rebuild that home. We work with legal teams of providers, content IP attorneys, other people who are part of their sort of business that protects their IP, maintains the integrity of it. And we help these companies and individuals pursue legal means against these pirates, because to identify the problem, to identify the actor, and just to kind of slap the hand or send down takedown notices is not enough. You need real teeth. You've got to actually send a real message to the community, and you got to follow through and see these things through. There's tedious. There's a lot of it, and there's a lot on people's plates in general for these large companies that we work with, but you have to see this through. Otherwise, back to my insurance analogy, you've done your insurance piece, you haven't filed a claim. That's it, pretty and simple. So we really kind of pride ourselves on working as part of an overall content strategy, end to end, with a licensee, with a content creator or distributor, to ensure that their content is not only protected, but if there is an issue, that they can actually pursue legal means to rectify the situation.
So really serious stuff then, which is, I guess, so appropriate when what we spoke about previously about some of those really tough challenges that people are facing. I suppose the only way that can be resolved is by that serious stuff that you spoke about there. So, again, just talking from my uneducated mind, but certainly remembering cases in the past of broadcasters, being the UK, for example, are trying to stop some of these pirates showing 3 o'clock Premier League games, in which obviously still by law not allowed to be broadcast in the UK, and not being able to get very far with it, which at the time felt strange. That it was clear as day what the crime was, but actually being able to do something about it was quite difficult. So with what you said there, it sounds like a lot more of a tactile and strategic way of dealing with it, which ultimately will be more effective.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is fascinating. It's something that I think a lot of people take for granted, but it's I guess from a financial point of view is beyond a kind of a belief really as to what it means for some of these large companies. So it's obviously so important. Clearly, strides being made, particularly by Friend, to try and address this. I guess my final question, which might be a difficult one to predict, or any trends that might be coming, but what do you think lies ahead in this anti-piracy space?
So I think you're going to see a couple of things. Look, all of us, Friend, MTS, and our competitors included, we will certainly evolve our technologies as pirates evolve the way they, provide copyright infringement or actually steal the content for illicit means. And I can only assume our competitors do the same as well. I mean, the space itself, Callum, is changing radically. The media world, as we once knew it, has completely turned on its head with regards to delivery. There's never been a bigger time and space for content creation. If you're in the business of creating content, there are so many outlets now for you to pursue as far as distribution and or exhibition goes for this content. there's so many services: Paramount, Hulu, Amazon, HBO Plus. There's Disney Plus. Obviously, ESPN's part of the Disney family. Peacock is another one. Discovery, Warner Media. That this whole sort of combining of companies with AT&T that's coming next year. There's so many streaming services, but at some point, you got to think that this subscriber level that's sort of been on this uphill climb at some point will kind of level off. That the people that are actually going to consume this content have actually found their home or found their content, and even to a point where some of the subscriber levels will go down just because it's human nature to add or take away content depending on what content's available on that platform. I think consolidation is coming more so than we've seen in a bigger way. I don't think all of these platforms can survive. I mean, look, you sit down and try to do a total of everything that you subscribe to and try to understand, if you did not work, if you and I both just sat at home and tried to stream everything, you would never even touch a quarter of the content that's available. But with this, I think comes this content that's being created. It's some of the best content in the history of media. Piracy just gets more attractive, right? As these things consolidate and get more valuable, and content continues to be the running currency, piracy just increases. And we're there to maintain a vigilant search over these bad actors, the methods that they use, and we are constantly evolving how we do our business and how we look at our business based on current trends. But I do think at some point this sort of arms race for content creation will lead to a bit of consolidation, which I think will put even more of an emphasis on protecting that content, because some of this stuff will actually kind of get down to a granular level where you actually might be able to name the platform that something's airing on. That's, there's so many things that are available out there that people just do sort of massive global searches via voice or remote or however to try to find the content. I think that as this stuff sort of combines itself a little bit and slows down, piracy will become even more of an issue, and we'll be there to help fight it.
Absolutely. And just as a side note, I'd be more than happy to take you up on your offer to try and watch every piece of content across all of the platforms. That sounds terrific fun. Whether I'll be able to get the time off work to do that, I'm not sure. But regardless, anyway, it's been fascinating to speak to you today, John. It's such an interesting topic, and the work that you're doing at Friend sounds so important to everyone in the industry, I guess, to try and combat that. So thanks again for joining me today. I really appreciate it. All the best for 2022, and hopefully see you in person next year.
I look forward to it as well. Callum, thanks again for the time and the opportunity. All the best to you and your family as we close out 2021, and all the best in 2022.